Am I the asshole for canceling our honeymoon after my fiancée spent $10,000 on her wedding dress?
My fiancé and I are planning to get married late this year.
We had a small, rough budget for our wedding.
It's a small wedding, only about 30 guests and hosted on a family friend's property.
We've been making the decoration ourselves, doing online RSVPs, ordering our wedding cake from Costco.
As a trade-off, my fiancé and I would be going on a very expensive honeymoon.
I left my fiancée to buy her wedding dress because I thought she would be mature enough to stay within our budget. I found out that she spent $10,000 on a dress she will wear once. She argued that it was her dream wedding dress and she had compromised on having an ugly wedding for me. I had no idea she felt that way because she never expressed it. She says she can afford the dress. But we can't afford the dress. We don't even have a house yet. We can't afford both the dress and the honeymoon trip, and I'm pretty sure the dress was custom made and can't be returned.
I immediately canceled our honeymoon trip. It was booked through an agency and we had insurance, so we only lost out on $250 each. If we had waited any longer, it would have been a lot more pricey to cancel. When she found out I had canceled the honeymoon, she got very angry.
She said I had no right to cancel the honeymoon, and if I didn't fix it, she would go on the honeymoon alone.
The entire wedding party has weighed in and her friends are hammering me mercilessly about it.
Even her dad is mad at me. My friends and family are on my side. Am I the asshole? Edit.
Ordinarily I never would have made such a big decision like canceling our honeymoon without talking it over with my fiancé.
But she was stonewalling about the dress and refused to discuss how we can't afford it. We cannot afford both the dress and the honeymoon. And we couldn't afford to wait. We put the honeymoon on a credit card. For points. We would have been able to afford it and still have a bit of savings left over to cushion us. She spent $10,000 on the dress.
That wiped out most of her savings account, leaving her with a few $100s left. That's not enough to pay for the honeymoon too.
There's also additional costs that could crop up in the wedding. She will be living paycheck to paycheck regardless.
But if we went on that honeymoon, we'd have a credit card bill to worry about too.
Sounds like you need to postpone this wedding. She did this knowing you were going to be upset about it. You guys have stuff to work out.
Ash, but I kinda have the feeling you're not going to have to worry about either the wedding or the honeymoon. You two are not on the same page about finances and are making unilateral decisions without talking to each other. That's not a good start, is it? I have so many questions.
Is it paid for with her separate money? Who paid for the dress? Who is paying for the honeymoon? Did you discuss a dress budget? How would she go on the honeymoon alone if it's cancelled? Is she going to use her own money to repurchase the honeymoon trip? If she can do that, it sounds like you can afford both.
Maybe you guys should pause on the wedding. There is a significant dispute on finances. $10,000 is a lot, especially if you're trying to save money.
Esh.
You guys need to get on the same page. Refinances, clearly she's willing to spend much more than you.
You really need to get aligned on finances. Not the asshole. You can't afford this honeymoon anymore since the money is gone in the dress. Your fiancé didn't respect the rules you established. If she absolutely wanted a fancy dress, she should have talked to you about it instead of making decisions on her own. She's either selfish or financially irresponsible. Esh. She bought an expensive wedding dress without informing you, and without warning you canceled the honeymoon. It sounds like you both make big decisions behind each other's backs. Am I the asshole for telling a friend to stop watching so much PRN? I, 19F, have a twin brother who I am very close to. Let's call him Jay. We hang out together a lot and I consider him to be one of my best friends. We became a lot closer during high school when we found out we were both bisexual. Making friends doesn't come easy to me, and I really only have 2 close friends. 3 if you count my best friend's childhood friend that hangs out with us sometimes. My twin is very social and has a bigger group of friends that he hangs out with all the time since most of them go to the same college. Last week when we were hanging out with some of our mutual friends from high school, one of them made a comment about my shirt, saying it looked like one my brother had in high school. I told her it was the same shirt and she gave me a kind of weird look. I brushed it off because I didn't think she meant anything by it. My brother and I sometimes share clothes because we have a similar enough style and are about the same height and build. For us it just means we have a lot more clothing options.
Yesterday, I ran into that same friend after one of my classes and we stopped to talk.
My brother called me in the middle of our conversation to ask if I wanted food since he was ordering anyway, and before I hung up I said, "Bye, I love you."
He said it back and my friend gave me a strange look. She didn't say anything at first, but then when I asked her what was wrong, she said it was just strange that I said I love you to my brother.
I laughed it off and asked her if she didn't say it to her siblings. She said no because that was weird. I didn't know what to say, so I just left it there and told her I needed to go so I could meet Jay at home before he left for his friend's house since they were planning on hanging out. She then started talking about how weird our relationship was and how it wasn't normal for siblings to share clothes or say I love you, hug, hang out so much or do any of the things we do. And how high school was weird since we were always together and talking to each other.
She also brought up a comment I made in high school in response to a question about what I would do if my twin died.
I said that I didn't think I could live without him because he was a part of me. This question was asked to another set of twins we were friends with and they both had the same answer. The whole time she was going on, I just stared at her because I really couldn't believe what I was hearing. Eventually she stopped and I just blurted out, "You know, you should really stop watching so much PRN." She was very embarrassed and went off at me for saying that. I just left and went home. I told Jay what happened and he just laughed at me while I felt like I was dying inside because I couldn't believe I said that. I asked my friends what they thought and they laughed at me and told me I'm not the asshole, but I still feel like I am. So am I the asshole? Not the asshole. She then started talking about how weird our relationship was and how it wasn't normal for siblings to share clothes or say I love you, hug, hang out so much or do any of the things we do. It's very common to do all of those things if you like your siblings and enjoy spending time with them. A lot of people don't.
She probably has a bad relationship with her siblings, thinks that's the default, and so you're too close with your brother because you're on the other end of the spectrum. Not the asshole and she making this weird.
I know twins can be extremely close and sometimes closer than normal siblings. You are right, she is turning this sexual and that is really strange. That is where her mind went. Affection between siblings is very oddly stigmatized for no reason. Siblings' love can be one of the strongest. There is nothing weird about it and it shouldn't be. Not the asshole. I'm an identical twin and while we are close to our other siblings, we are the closest to each other. Twin relationships might be strange to other people, but there's nothing wrong with them. The person who has something inappropriate to say is the person with the problem.
This friend should be embarrassed, but she caused this. It's a result of her actions. I really don't think you are the ass.
Saying I love you to family members is completely normal. And sharing clothes, I mean, if you have the same style and are the same size, why not? It makes sense. I think this girl was way over the top. I can see why it pissed you off and I don't blame you for saying what you did. NTA. It's her fault for making things so gross. If she's jealous of how amazing your relationship with your brother is, then she doesn't need to be weird about it. Also, that was an epic thing to say, had me laughing. Am I the asshole for telling my ILs I won't let my husband's stepbrother stay with us once he said no?
My husband, 30 male, has a stepbrother, 31 male, and they do not get along. They never did. They also don't consider each other family, brothers or anything of the sort. His stepbrother will occasionally, from what I know, try the whole "we're brothers" thing when he wants something. But my husband has never and will never consider that man his family, and if his mom and stepdad divorced tomorrow or if his mom were to die, he would never have another thing to do with his stepbrother and would not feel the need to stand by him if both his mom and stepdad were to die and they were the last of the family.
He was always clear with me on that. He did not invite his stepbrother to our wedding and told his mom that she didn't have to come either if she was unhappy with his choice. There has been absolutely zero contact for 4 years now. My husband's stepbrother lived in another state and didn't come back to visit his dad, my husband's stepdad, which was the only contact either had in their adult years. Now he's returning to be closer to his dad, or has returned, and he was looking for a temporary place to stay while apartment hunting. Right now he's with my ILs, but he has a big commute to work, according to the three of them, and mother-in-law asked if my husband and I would let him stay with us for a few weeks until he gets a place figured out. My husband said no.
Told his mom and stepdad not to offer money or another incentive because he does not want his stepbrother here, and that's final. So mother-in-law and father-in-law called me up and asked me if I would say yes and get my husband to accept it. They told me it would mean so much and maybe the two of them could finally bond and act like brothers.
Mother-in-law told me it would be for max 9 weeks. And that he would behave and wouldn't fight with my husband. I told her none of that mattered because my husband said no, and that was what mattered to me. She told me to think of family and our future kids and having an uncle. I told her again, it didn't make a difference to me. S father-in-law told me as my husband's wife I could help influence him in a positive way. When I still reiterated that my answer was no and I stood by my husband's answer, they told me I should be helping, not encouraging this BS. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole.
Your in-laws are trying to play the two of you off each other, which shows a shocking lack of understanding of the situation or some delusion that your husband can be convinced into a relationship.
Do they think you're not going to mention this attempt to your husband? Do they think that he's going to react well to this little stunt? Not the asshole.
Make sure to tell your husband his parents went behind his back to convince you to let stepbrother stay.
Not the asshole.
If they haven't bonded by now, what makes his parents think this is the way?
I think they may just want stepbrother out of their house. In the end, no means no, it is a complete sentence and they should be pressuring you or hubby to change it. Not the asshole.
They are going behind their son's back trying to get you to change his mind.
They are definitely Oz, but you are not. Way to stand firm with your husband.
Side note, first it was a few weeks and then a max of 9 weeks for the stay. I am thinking he would not be leaving anytime soon.
Not the asshole.
Be sure to check your mail that they don't try to get him residency in your house.
Squatters have been afforded insane rights to places they don't pay for since COVID. Not the asshole. You are entirely correct and they are being manipulative.
Not encouraging this BS. They were parents of these boys and let them grow up and be apart. They are not children now. They are adult and can make their own mind.
Your husband is entirely in his right to not want this connection or someone he dislikes to stay in his home. Think of your future kids, that is the real BS.
You chose right.
Am I the asshole for turning a family argument into a massive situation that now involves theft?
I, 20M, come from a shitshow of a family.
One of my uncles is a raging narcissist, but everyone still talks to him, unfortunately.
I will call him Frank. Yesterday, we had a small family dinner since it's my grandmother's birthday.
Frank and his wife Sarah are awful to Frank's daughter from his first marriage, Clara, 18F. I would never stop if I explained it all, but all you need to know is that Clara is innocent.
They hate her for no reason.
Frank hosted a family dinner yesterday and they were trying to use Clara as a servant. She had already cooked most of the food and they were trying to make her clean up. She had enough and called her stepbrother, her stepdad's son, to collect her. I've met her stepbrother a few times and he's a very nice guy, but he does not mess around about his sisters, Clara included. He used to have major anger issues, but he's calmer nowadays.
Her stepbrother arrived, and Frank said that he wasn't going to let Clara leave until she washed all the dishes.
Other cousins offered to help, but he said that since she made all the dishes, because she did all the cooking, she had to wash them. He then hid her shoes and phone so she couldn't leave.
For the first time ever, my mother and other elders were standing up to him and demanding that he let her go home, but he wasn't budging.
An argument started. You know, the type where all the kids are cleared out of the room.
Clara started crying, and was just going to do the dishes, but I was like, nah, no way.
I went outside to her stepbrother's car,
and turns out one of Clara's cousins from her mom's side was also there with him.
They asked what was taking so long, and I informed them of the situation.
This is where I might be the asshole, since I knew these two would go in the house and get Clara out by any means necessary.
I let them in, and all I can say is that Clara's shoes and phone were returned immediately. I stayed outside, and I am not lying when I say that those men shouted so loudly the windows were shaking.
Her stepbrother and cousin also then took a pair of Frank's shoes, TV remote and a few other things just because they could.
Now, everyone is mad at me.
My mother is saying I was an asshole because they were trying to get the situation sorted, which is true. That was the first time I saw anyone stand up to Frank.
She said now that I got Clara's maternal family involved, things are a million times worse.
Clara's older brother, not the stepbrother, who is also Frank's son who couldn't make it to the family dinner, has completely disowned his father and is refusing to return a car and lawnmower he borrowed. They are demanding I apologize to Frank, and that I also ensure his belongings are returned to him.
I don't think I am an asshole because it's his fault he refused to let Clara go, but my sister told me to post here. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. Fuck everyone who's telling you to apologize to Frank.
For what exactly? You unleashed a Delta Force security team to unfuck Frank's hostage situation. Good for you.
Holding a grown woman against her will. Frank should be happy he isn't missing teeth. Not the asshole. Should have called the cops when he stole her belongings. She's 18 and an adult, and he was illegally trying to detain her. Not the asshole. What resolution did your mom think was going to happen if she kept talking to Frank? Clara was already in tears and ready to do the dishes to restore family peace. And then what?
Frank just does this again and again. If Frank is a narcissist bully, he wasn't going to respond to your mom talking to him unless he felt like he got a win out of it. Now the family is trying to give him at least a little W by bullying you into an apology.
Not the asshole.
That ass of a man stole Clara's, shoes.
Would they have had you lie to him when he asked point and what was taking so long? I'm glad she has people like Frank and you to stand up for her, because her dad and stepmom are terrible. Go her. Not the asshole. Those two men deserve free pizza and beer for handling Frank and his bullshit.